is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. That would probably make me Clark. I'm Glenn Clark. He's probably going to be Griffin. We're going to be with you for a couple of hours because we need to I don't know. I saw the Jerry Rosberg thing this morning. How bizarre is that?
So he was
Like,
asking
how
for,
weird is that?
he was asking for too much money.
I don't know. Or they couldn't define what his role was going to be. It's the weirdest thing. It's funny because yesterday everybody was all up in arms about this. This is how dumb we are. So dumb. And I love you guys, but we're just all very dumb. The number of I thought the head coach was supposed to be the game manager. Guys, we're trying so hard. I tell you what, and if you just want to say, hey, I don't really understand the difficulty of this, that's a different conversation. I can't believe that a suggestion would be made for anyone. Andy Reid could use a game management coach. Bill Belichick could use a game management coach. The best, or whatever you want to call this title, game management is the thing that
Timeout coordinator
has stuck. No, because it's not that. Like we got to understand, it's so much. It's a consultant who is separated from the emotions of the football game, who isn't dealing with guys coming on and off the field and none of that. Who is isolated and only looking at things from an outside perspective. And every team in football would benefit from having one of those. It's something that we actually, almost all of us, campaigned for before they started happening. And then, because we're naturally contrarians, the moment they started happening, we went the other. Well, what do these guys do? That we're just mouth breathers. Now, I don't know what it means that the Ravens aren't going to be bringing back Jerry Rosberg to be the coordinator, whatever they want to call this.
I could do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably, for whatever they're going to offer to pay Jerry Rosberg.
Yeah. I might do it for less.
I got to be honest with you. I don't want you to be the guy.
What?
No disrespect. It's because we couldn't afford to lose you here.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's
all right.
That's what it is.
Okay, I understand.
I don't know. I would assume this means they're committed to hiring the position, and it's not just, hey, Jerry Rosberg was hanging around last year, so they wanted to find a title for him. I assume it means they are committed to finding someone for this role. I hope it's what it means. I certainly can't guarantee that. I don't have the thoughts that they have. I couldn't tell you. But Jerry Rosberg yesterday was going to become... He's going to take this job, and then all of a sudden today, not so much, which is really weird. I mean, like, really, really, really weird. I don't know what to make of it. But I would assume that means that somebody else will take on a game management role with the Ravens, and we'll see what it is. And I would say that every team should have, whatever you want to call it, eye in the sky. Just someone who is separated from the field, who is separated from play calling, who is separated from the moment-to-moment aspects of a football game, who has the ability to be a consultant and say, I don't know if you guys realize this, because you guys think it's crazy that a team wouldn't recognize, hey, you've only handed the ball off to running backs 3 times. And all that says is that you're not actively involved in football games. The first thing that you work in broadcasting, the first thing that every coach wants to see at the end of every quarter, at the end of every half, at the end of every game, bring me a stat sheet. Because they're in it on every play. Every play. They don't have the time or the ability, the inclination to be looking at things like that. Because they've got to be actively involved on every freaking play and every little thing. mentioning something to the referee. Hey, it's real weird how 74 keeps holding and you don't call it. There is so much going on during the course of a game. It's insane that we would respond negatively towards the idea of a game management coach. That's not to say that if it had been Jerry Rossberg or whoever it might be for the Baltimore Ravens, their job is to coach the team. No. Their job is to consult. Their job is to be watching the game separated from those emotions, separated from battles with officials, separated from trying to make sure that guys don't get 15-yard flags for fighting with each other, separated from the wide receiver that's pissed off that he's not being thrown the ball, separated from all of it, separated from, hey, what's going on with Johnson? Is he's able to come back into the game because he's dealing with an injury? All of those things. Separated from what are we going to do on 3rd and 3? Do we call a run play because we're thinking? Separated from all of that. Just able to consult. And it's not just, hey, have you happened to notice that you haven't really been given the ball to your running backs at all? It's anything else that person might see. And that person might contribute and be like, hey, remember, take your timeouts on this side of the 2-minute warning. Or, right now, you don't want to take your timeout because you'll be inviting them to throw the ball on 3rd down. We want to make sure they run the ball, so wait until after the 2-minute warning to take the timeout.
Does your returner know not to fair catch it or to fair catch it?
Again, just consulting. Just, hey, make sure you remind everybody. Make sure. That's a good thing. And if the Ravens, for those of you that hate John Harbaugh because, again, I don't know.
He's only won one Super Bowl.
You need something to do with your life, so you've decided that you've hated John Harbaugh. For those of you that are in that camp, I want to make this abundantly clear. If Mike McDonald was the head coach, I'd want him to have one of these guys too. This is a good idea. It's like when people hear that the college football teams are hiring general managers. They're like, I thought the coach was supposed to do the recruit. What? Like, you purposely want to make someone's job more difficult. Purposefully. These programs ain't running out of money. This isn't like a question of whether they can afford to hire somebody. This isn't a budget issue that you're dealing with. Like, I could see where maybe Morgan State wouldn't be able to afford hiring a general manager. But the top programs can. Why would you think it's a problem? We're just, this is who we are. We got to bitch about everything. That's what's wrong with our country. There's a preview for tomorrow. I actually have a few things lined up.
Oh, yeah?
I got some stuff I want to get off my chest. I've alluded to a few things. Oh, and I added another one last night.
Do a whole hour of That's What's Wrong.
We played. I got nothing else to say. It's a weird thing. Weird thing.
Sean McVay could definitely use
I really don't know.
Everyone could.
Every coach in football every team would benefit from having someone in this capacity. Might benefit from having 3 of them. I mean, it might be. Charlie Toomey mentioned this when we were talking to him last week about lacrosse with the replay. He was like, I wish that we had a former lacrosse coach that I could just have sit in a booth.
He wishes he could look at you and
have help me out. By the way, I'm glad he didn't because he would have gotten the first one wrong on Saturday. I genuinely was like, I think that's a good goal. He reviewed it. It was called a crease violation. So
not you, okay.
Definitely not me. And frankly, I would have gone over 2, although the second one wasn't a challenge. They had a buzzer beater at the half. And I was like, no way. Not a chance in hell. They got that off in time. And then we looked at the replay, and I'm telling you, like, as the clock's hitting 0.0, the ball is out by like a centimeter. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in terms of replay. But he said, I wish that I could just have a former coach that could just sit in there and help me out. Because for as much as everybody thinks that coaches are ego-driven, they would prefer to have the assistance of other coaches. And when this coach is responsible for this, and this coach is responsible for this coach is responsible for this, you forget that there are, my God, how many things are involved in a football game? There's 22 people on the field at once. It's insane. So saying I do once upon a time, I'm trying to remember what the year was. There was like a year where the Ravens had like an offensive line coach, a run game coordinator, and like they had too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of actual position coaches. And players kind of admitted it was too much. I'm not encouraging that. I do think there can be danger in the lead up to a game, the meetings that you have, the plans that you're putting in, there being too many guys with too many different opinions about what it is that you're doing. This isn't that. This is on game day having a and by the way, this role wouldn't be you get to make the final decision. Jerry Rossberg. Jerry Rossberg's a really nice guy. I really like Jerry Rossberg. He really wanted to be a head coach. He got to be an interim coach. That did happen. But, like, whoever it would be, I try to think of somebody else who's out of work.
Chuck Pagano.
Yeah, Chuck Pagano would be, if he wanted to do something like this, he'd be great at it. Like, just on game days. You don't have to be here during the week.
So he could still come on the show?
Yeah, I don't think he'd be allowed to at that point. I think, unfortunately, we can't have that. We can't have.
You know what?
He's
somebody else.
He's too important. It comes to our guest options. We can't have Coach Pagano taking a role with the Ravens. But like that, that type of person that you don't. Look, I say they don't need to be involved. I would think they would still be involved because they would still want to know. But you're not actively coaching during the course of the week. You're consulting. You are there. Maybe not every day of the week. You're there a couple of days of the week, just getting a sense for the team. Maybe you know a thing or two about things they have in their up their sleeve. Like, hey, you could just point that out. I don't know, guys. Halftime of a game. Have you thought about maybe we go a little more RPO? You know, whatever it is. I couldn't believe how negative people were about this. Couldn't believe that. The other thing that there was a lot of reaction to yesterday was Brian McFarland said on the show, we were talking about Pat Ricard. And in fairness, it's very difficult. I give Griffin some grace with this. It's very difficult to.
I probably should have phrased it better.
Yeah, it's very difficult to tweet as the show's going on, but that's the content that we're trying to get that out there. And sometimes the wording isn't exact. And we got to be careful, and we do our best, but I give Griffin a lot of grace with this because what I don't want to do is say, let's stop doing it, right? Like, and also, I don't want to wait 3 hours later and go back and try to train like that. I want it to be that people see, hey, Brian McFarland's chatting with. I want to tune into that. Let's be honest. That's what it's all about. Hey, that sounds like some content that I'd be interested in. I'd like to watch that show. That's what we're doing.
Sell out.
That's what it is. So there was a lot of reaction to his comments about Pat Ricard. And to be clear, he did say that an extension could also be an option. And there was a lot of negativity towards the idea that Pat Ricard would be released. And I get it. I really do. For a team that's going to run the ball, Pat Ricard has been a really important piece for the Baltimore Ravens for some time. And I'm not telling you that I want to see the Ravens release Pat Ricard. Believe it or not, despite the fact that he embarrassed himself badly about Outcast, I love Pat Ricard. He's one of my favorites. I will continue to say the money's got to come from somewhere. Like, it's got to come somewhere somehow. You want to do the other things that you want to do. You guys want to both have Pat Ricard and be in the Mike Evans sweepstakes. You guys want to both have Pat Ricard and make sure that you sign Justin Madubuike long term. The cap figures are going to start hitting for Lamar Jackson next year. Now, that's, to me, not a problem. I'd rather have Lamar Jackson. But that's the reality. The reality is, once that occurs, the money's got to come from somewhere. And we just say things like, well, just release Ronnie Stanley. Okay, but as was pointed out by Brian McFarland yesterday, even a post-June 1st release of Ronnie Stanley would only push savings back till after June 1st. And as he said, you could try to budget around that, but it still does not give you that money to be involved in the free agent market. You can make it work. You can make it work by saying, hey, this is money we're going to spend on rookies anyway, so we are always going to need to have a certain amount of money come June. We just don't sign any of our rookies until after June. Like, you can try to do the math on this to make it work, but it still ain't getting you where you need to be if you want to do all the things that you want to do. You want to bring Kevin Zeitler back? You got to have a running back. I hope that Keaton Mitchell is going to prove to be a star, but I think right now it's a difficult thing to just say Keaton Mitchell is this team's featured number 1 running back next year.
Frank Gore Jr. in the 6th round.
Don't get me wrong. We've all seen the same highlights. We've all seen this guy could probably play until he's 90. Somebody's got to be on. They've got to have a running back. I'm not suggesting that it needs to be, although I'll tell you once again, I am to understand Josh Jacobs would very much be interested in being a Baltimore Raven. Like,
I mean,
then
you're not getting,
What?
I mean, well, because then that's your big.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what any of these free agent running backs are getting. I got to be honest with you. I don't know that there's a market for any of them because it's got Derrick Henry. You've got I don't know. I don't know what teams have money to spend on running backs. But you're gonna have to have somebody. By the way, and the answer might just be that you bring back Gus Edwards, right? Like, I don't think that there's going to be a huge market for Gus Edwards either necessarily, although I think there would be teams that would be happy to have him, and this is probably where we say something like, and might be willing to give him the ball more than 3 times. But, like, to me, that's this. If you really believe in Keaton Mitchell, then the plan is bring back Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill will be there as well until Keaton Mitchell's ready, and then figure out if Keaton Mitchell's your backup plan is you have the same 2 running backs that you had on the field last year, but you got to figure out what that market is for Gus Edwards in order to make that happen, and it's still real money. I wouldn't go into next year with less than that. I wouldn't go into next year with just Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill being on the roster. One, who's your change of pace back there? Like, you do need a between-the-tackles running back. And I'm not saying Keaton Mitchell can't run between the tackles because we saw that he could, but you're putting a lot of faith into someone who has done only a little at the NFL level. So you want to do all of these things, and I get it. I think the point isn't about Pat Ricard as much as it's about I just think there's a limit to what you can pay at the fullback position. It's the reason why we've all kind of made peace about the Patrick Queen thing. It has nothing to do with Patrick Queen. As wrong as Griffin has been about Patrick Queen in his life. It has nothing to do with Patrick Queen is a damn good football player. The point is
he'll kill it in Tennessee,
There's got to be or Seattle or Miami or wherever he's going to end up being. What we're saying is there probably has to be a cap to how much money you can spend at inside linebacker. There probably has to be a limit to that. Because by the way, you're going to have edge rushers again next year. And maybe Jadeveon Clowney or Kyle Van Noy would want to come back. Are you counting on that again? Are you believing, remember now, even in a post-Mike McDonald world, that you can get the exact same amount of impact from those guys who probably you're going to have to pay more money to because they both had decent seasons, or a number 30 overall draft pick? You got to do something there. So it's easy to say, well, they can't do that with Pat Ricard. And I hear you. And I think Brian McFarland's point is they might not. They might say he's so important that let's figure out a way to get this number down a little bit via an extension. That might be the way that it goes about happening. But it's also possible that at some point they just say we can't keep passing the money off. At some point, we're going to have to save some money at fullback. We just don't have a choice. It's not that we don't love Pat Ricard. It's that we have to have a budget. And the budget's going to have to say the fullback position can only count X number of dollars against the cap. If we're going to try to do these other things that we want to do. I'm not campaigning for or suggesting that the Ravens should release Pat Ricard. I would prefer that they didn't. But we definitely go through this every year where we want it all. I want it all, Daddy. I want it all. Like, we do this time of year. And it just isn't possible. The Ravens will do as much of that as they can do in terms of flexibility and fungibility when it comes to salary cap. But at some point, they're going to have to make some tough decisions. My gut is they know there's just no world in which Geno Stone is back next year. It's just, you got to move on. Now, somebody else might say, well, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that much money for Geno Stone. But I think the money that Geno Stone's going to be paid because of his numbers versus the actual level of player is the area where the Ravens are going to say, we like Geno, but we think we can find another Geno instead of paying for something that we think is a little bit beyond what Geno actually is. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe the market will come back to them. Maybe every other team is going to look at him and say, we're not overpaying because he happened to have a bunch of interceptions this year. We don't think he's a ball hawk. We think that things worked out for him this year. Maybe that's what everybody else will feel, and the market will come back. But my gut is somebody's going to pay Geno Stone based on that number. It's just going to say, wow, like this is the game changer. And I don't know that the Ravens think that's fully exactly what Geno Stone is. I don't think the Ravens believe that Geno Stone is Ed Reed in terms of coming away with.
It's more that he just got to play alongside Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith.
A lot of that. Like, it happened to go his way this year. And I don't, when you say that, you feel like you're taking away something from that guy. And it's unfair. I think there are certain players that it's dynamic. It's in them. They are ball hawks. They are turnover machines. They are playmakers. And I think there are other players that have really good seasons in that department, and you got to really scrutinize exactly what led to that. I think Geno Stone is a really good football player and an amazing story. It's awesome. Again, another guy that I really like. But once you're talking about real money, I got to be getting real game changer, and I'm not sure that that's what Geno Stone is. So my gut is that that's probably just over. In doing the math, that like what Geno Stone is versus what his market is likely to be, those two things probably don't line up. But I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know that. Believe it or not, they haven't. Every team hasn't come and shown me, here's exactly what we think Geno Stone's value is.
Should we keep doing this? Do Clowney or Van Noy come back?
Well, yeah, we were just talking about that a second ago. Where were you?
Okay, I guess I was.
We just brought that up.
Okay.
Like, I don't.
Darby, Rocky Sin.
Yeah, I mean, those guys I don't see big markets for. I could see those guys being back. I don't really know how much everybody would want Rocky Sin back, but I don't know that Darby all of a sudden has a huge demand. I could see Darby being back at a certain number.
The wide receivers, Aguilar or...
Yeah, I mean, the Beckham thing's really interesting, right? Because is he so happy playing with Lamar that he's willing to play at a lesser number?
Right.
And he seemed to be really happy here, and he seemed to be really happy alongside Lamar. We all saw that tweet that he sent out at the end of the year. I'm not slamming the door on that in particular. I'm not slamming the door on either one of them. I know a lot of people have speculated, could like Rashad Bateman be unhappy about the fact that he's sort of become the lost man, and could he end up being the next guy that tries to get out of Baltimore because he wants to be somewhere where he's more featured? I don't know. That's a tricky.
I think they still believe in him, obviously, but
yeah, obviously Eric Costa went out of his way on Friday to make it publicly known that they still believe in Bateman. And maybe internally they say we don't bring back Beckham because we got to have Bateman be the number. We got to get an answer on Bateman. They have is this now they got to make the decision on Bateman this year?
Yeah.
Picking up the 5th-year option? Is that?
Yeah, because this was his 3rd season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to make it now, and that's a tricky one, right? I mean, like what? It's so funny that like they don't pick up these 5th-year options. And again, part of it is let's get on with it. I don't know. All right, we got a lot to do on the program today. Ryan Spilborghs is going to join us in a couple of minutes. We'll get his thoughts on Corbin Burnes coming to the Baltimore Orioles and what it makes the Orioles now. It's Tuesday, so we will dive into the local high school scene. Our buddy Wes Brown, County Sports Zone Radio, will check in with us. Plus, we do it every Tuesday. We'll talk some hoops, some Terps, some lacrosse with our buddy Patrick Stevens. And then before we get out of here today, Ryan Jensen, former Baltimore Raven, just announced his retirement from the NFL, former Super Bowl champion. We will chat with Ryan Jensen as well on the program today. Looking forward to all of that. Today's show is brought to you by, Goose Flights. You know how much we love Goose Flights. It's available all over town. You can get it in cans at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill or at Alonzo's in Roland Park. Also at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton. Cans and six-packs available at Costas Inn in Dundalk, as well as Guilford Hall Brewery in Station North. Six-packs and cases available at the Wine Source in Hamden, with more locations to come. Find out more, pressboxonline.com/gooseflights. $1.98 from every can sold goes to benefit the Goose Flights Foundation and what Tony Saragusa's family is doing to continue his legacy, providing non-emergency medical transport for those in need. Ryan Spilborghs next, Glenn Clark Radio.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Saragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door. Just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code GlennClark23, GLENNCLARK23. So bet with the best and use the promo code GlennClark23 this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
6 chicken tenders made from fresh, never frozen Royal Farms world-famous chicken, a family-sized order of Western fries, honey mustard dipping sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. It's Royal Farms' new Tucker's Tenders Meal. It's Justin Tucker's favorite, and at only $19.99, it'll be your favorite meal, too. The new Tucker's Tenders Meal, available only at Royal Farms. Now you can kick back, relax, and eat like a champion. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Jeremy Kahn here. The ultimate sports betting experience in Maryland is at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook. Join me at either location in Canton or in Towson and place your bets in person and be a part of the action. It's the best in-class sports wagering experience, complete with the ultimate TV package, ensuring you can catch every game all day, every day. Their state-of-the-art facilities bring Las Vegas energy right here to Maryland just in time for postseason football. So visit the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton and Towson and elevate your game day experience and hang out with me to bet, watch, and win at the Turtle.
Hey Ravens fans, looking for the perfect new game day brew? Get a Guilford, Baltimore's finest craft beer during the next home game at the bank. That's not all. Gather your flock next home game and check out Guilford Hall Brewery's brand new bar, the Gilly Nest, located near Section 505. No tickets? No problem. Enjoy all Ravens games all season long at our restaurant and brewery in Station North. Guilford Hall Brewery, European tradition, Baltimore charm.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. If you missed it yesterday, Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson got together to discuss the Baltimore Orioles, Corbin Burnes, all of the activity of the last week. You You can find it right now, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Again, obviously, we're all very excited. Everybody's fired up. And it just keeps seeming like, please tell me that there's even more news to come. There could be another domino that could still fall at this point before the start of spring training, but we will see how that plays out. Big news in baseball yesterday, obviously, as the Kansas City Royals were able to lock down Bobby Witt Jr. And it elicited the reaction that you would expect from Orioles fans, which is, okay, now it's time for the Orioles to do this. So Bobby Witt Jr. gets 11 years, $288.7 million. So Bobby Witt Jr. was in the same draft, of course, as Adley Rutschman. Well, Adley Rutschman's probably not going to get an 11-year deal because Adley Rutschman's a catcher. Also came in at an older age than Bobby Witt Jr. did. Maybe you'd say, hey, that's the guiding light for doing something with Gunnar Henderson, but, there's an agent impediment there. Let's talk a little bit more about the Orioles. This man, I heard him on MLB Network Radio. He was fired up about the Orioles making the move to acquire Corbin Burnes and what it means for this ball club. He is the Spilly Goat himself. He is Ryan Spilborghs, and he is back with us here on GCR. Ryan, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Yeah, likewise. It's pretty exciting to see the Orioles doing some stuff.
Dude, it is. We are through the roof here, man. Like, it is really hard to explain how significant this is. And I said it this way last week, Ryan, like, the micro of it is amazing because it's Corbin Burnes, right? Like, this is the best pitcher the Baltimore Orioles have had since Mike Messina. But somehow the micro of it might not even be as significant as the macro of it, which is new ownership and what they might be willing to do and their commitment and what that might mean. Like, it's incredible that it might be that the acquisition of Corbin Burnes is significant, but not even as significant as the statement that it makes about the future of the Orioles.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the tip of the iceberg is the future, right? Like, you're wondering, because listen, as much as we were all over the Angelos family for not being more aggressive last year during the trade deadline, and then hearing, we're not going to be able to sign these guys long term, and that's really frustrating, especially when you know that Mike Elias and the front office have done an incredible job of building up their farm system, and when you have that, you want to have the backing of ownership to go out there and be strategic in either acquiring or adding payroll. And, you hear ownership saying, no, we're not going to do that. And it's frustrating. And then this week and on our program on Loud Outs, one of our producers is a humongous Baltimore Orioles fan. And he posed this question to us over the off season, which was, would an Orioles fan rather, ownership sign a big free agent or get sold? And he was saying like 90% of Orioles fans would prefer to see the team get sold than sign a big free agent. Well, the beauty of this is that you get both. Now you get new ownership, which feels like, with the Baltimore native, that he is going to invest. I always caution fans when you do get a new owner, it's never quite the transition you want because there's still a lot of debt service that has to be paid, and usually that's a trimming of payroll. But when it comes to Baltimore and their roster, it's all under league control. It's all league minimums. And so you can be strategic in your extensions. I think Bobby Witt just set the market, which might have kind of hurt Baltimore in a sense.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, is one of the things that we pointed out with Mike Elias and with the front office is that they seemed risk adverse as far as trading their young prospects. And that's understandable when you do have an ownership group that says, hey, listen, this is what we have and we want to keep it cost controlled. Well, of course, the front office is going to keep on to their prospects because that's their way of replenishing with youth and trimming costs. So I think it is a big deal to see Corbin Burnes move. I think it is a big deal that Mike Elias was willing to move DL Hall, who's arguably one of the best left-handed young prospect pitchers in baseball. Joey Ortiz is going to be a nice player. I hope he has a great career. But other than that, I mean, like, it's a huge monumental move for Baltimore in the last 20 years because they have not been willing to do this. And if they're willing to go one more step, I think there's additional moves with their farm system that they can go out and acquire somebody else.
So let's talk about that, because in the clip that I heard of you guys talking about it, the context is now the World Series, right? Because the likely scenario is that Corbin Burnes is only here for this year, and he's going to go to free agency next offseason. Is this a team that, as constructed, if nothing else were to be done, can they win a World Series?
No, I still think there's a couple more margin moves in the bullpen that need to be done. I mean, you got to think of the teams that you're competing against. As far as in the American League, I think they're primed as any team to go as far as possible. Like last year, the Texas Rangers, they were a really, really, really good team that sputtered in the final week of the season, final 2 weeks of the season, and then they got hot.
Right.
But it wasn't a surprise because this was still a team that was leading the division for a majority of the year. And then Bruce Bochy basically used his bullpen, exceptionally well. I think in the case of Baltimore, I would like to see a couple more pieces just on the margins. So, like another bullpen arm. I don't mind the Craig Kimbrell deal. I would have liked a more higher end still, because if Kimbrell was doing so well, Philadelphia would have brought him back. And you get to the postseason, there's a reason why the Phillies, they were up, 2 games. They had to win 1 game to go to the World Series, and they couldn't because they couldn't put the game away at the end. You don't have Felix Bautista. I've been kind of banging on the Emmanuel Clase, go for the trade with the Guardians and get you a closer that's under control for the next 4 years and call it a day. And now we're talking World Series for real. So, I mean, they're right there. They're as good as any team in baseball. I don't think they're all the way there yet. They're not fully baked, but they're really close.
By the way, Brian Spilborghs is with us here on GCR. I agree with you about the back end of the bullpen, and I assume that Tyler Wells is going to be expected to help in that department moving forward, but we are totally in agreement. I guess it might be difficult. Like, can you do that with Clase, knowing that Felix Bautista is going to be back in a year, or do you say, hey, that's what we call a good problem to have, and we deal with that then? Yeah,
that's the right play.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a 1-2 punch at the back end, great. And you're also talking about, like, the Felix Bautista story is incredible. He was 28, right? Like, he's 28 when he busted out on the scene. So it's not like this guy was old reliable and, all of a sudden, like, he got hurt. He burst on the scene. He had one of the most incredible seasons last year. He probably would have been in a Cy Young discussion had he made it through the full season, just because of how electric he was at the back end. But there's no guarantee he's going to be exactly like that next year. So I don't see that. I think if I'm looking short term, I'm willing to move because you still have plenty of prospects that I think could acquire a guy like Clase, especially if you're a team like the Guardians where, like a high leverage reliever doesn't do you anything if you're not a 500 team.
I agree.
So, I mean, maybe that's a midway through the season, but if you're midway through the season, you're probably going to have a lot of suitors too. So I just think it boils down to what the Guardians are asking for and what the front office is willing to part with.
I have had an opinion that hasn't been shared by everyone throughout the offseason. I've had the opinion, Ryan, that I still think they could use one more thumper in the lineup too. And I know that some people would say, hey, that thumping is going to come development-wise, that more of these young guys are going to start hitting more home runs, and that, like more of Gunnar Henderson's doubles are going to turn into home runs. But when I look at the lineup from afar, I see Anthony Santander as a legitimate home run, power, like fearful threat. And I don't know how many of these other guys, the opposing pitchers, are really fearful of them putting balls out of the ballpark. Do you feel like they could use one more thumper, or are you confident that, these young guys are going to turn into that during the course of this season?
I mean, there's always going to be some sort of regression with players, especially early in their career. So you might see Gunnar take go backwards for a little bit and then go forward again. I mean, it would be nice to have a thumper, but I don't think it's necessary. I really like the length of the lineup right now because of the quality of the bats.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that stood out with Baltimore last year, and God, I don't know how many games we did nationally for the Orioles last year. It was like 4 or 5. But what the Orioles did exceptionally well was that they did not swing at pitches outside the strike zone. And that is a much better indicator of team offense versus just finding some guys that that can hit the ball long. So, if you start stringing some at-bats together, you take your walks, I think you're going to get some pop. Ryan Mountcastle's, I like his homers. I like Santander. You have no idea what Jackson Holliday is capable of doing if he does get a chance to play every day. We'll see. But I think you're okay. I would rather focus on the bullpen than anything else because I don't think the cost of acquisition is quite as high.
All right, let me come back to you brought up, the Bobby Witt, and it's complicated on a bunch of levels because when the new ownership came in last week, Ryan, there was a lot of excitement in Baltimore that this could change the trajectory for their ability to keep this core intact long term. And I'm a little bit apprehensive about that for multiple reasons, and I'll lay them out one by one. The first one is I don't think you can give Adley Rutschman the Bobby Witt deal because Adley Rutschman's a catcher. I don't think the Orioles are willing to go. But what was interesting to me was that I wondered how much of an appetite Adley Rutschman would even have, being 1 year away from arbitration anyway, for even considering an extension at this point. The fact that Bobby Witt, who was in a similar situation, was only a year away from arbitration, was willing to do it, should I be learning a lesson that even though someone's close to making real money, that doesn't mean they aren't inclined to listen? Should this be a lesson that maybe Adley Rutschman would still be willing to listen to the idea of signing, even if it's not for 11 years, because it's just not likely that somebody's going to do that for a catcher?
I mean, if I offered you $100 million right now, would you listen?
I hear you.
There's a human reaction no matter what of hearing you have a chance to make this. Now, the business side, and in the case of Adley, I disagree with you. We ran through this exercise a week ago too, where we were saying which of the Baltimore group would you extend right now? We had one guy take Jackson Holliday, somebody else took Gunnar Henderson. I think another one, my contemporaries took Mayo. And I was like, I'm taking Adley. And the reason why is I think in the history of the game is if you looked at the impact of just elite catchers, and catchers do get better with age. It's the one position player group in baseball where you've seen catchers get better as they get older because they learn the league. There is the risk of injury, which is concussions. But when you talk about a guy like Joe Mauer or Buster Posey, when you think about Yadi Molina, it is rare that you ever find a team that gets to the postseason with a terrible catcher. It just doesn't happen. So elite catchers usually lead teams to the postseason. And in the case of Adley, if I'm offering him a deal that's north of $26 million a year, I feel like that's a lot of bang for my buck, especially knowing that he impacts both my clubhouse, my pitching staff.
Yeah.
It's just a bet. I think he's worth the price of an extension. So I don't think I'd be risk adverse either when it comes to an extension with Adley.
The other two, Gunnar and Jackson Holliday, the tricky part of that conversation is someone that you know well. Of course, they're Scott Boras guys, and I don't know. My gut tells me that you can't do that. Knowing Scott Boras the way that you do, should I be slamming the door as much as I am about the possibility of it, or is there more flexibility there than just him saying, guys, we don't do this, we go to the open market? That's the way that it works.
Yeah, no, look, there's plenty of examples of Scott having guys sign long-term deals early in their contract. He's not the one that makes the decision. It's ultimately the player and his family. He presents it. So no matter what the offer is, he presents the offer. He'll also suggest, listen, if you go through the normal arbitration and then free agent process and you continue to be a good player, you should make north of this. But if you want to take this deal, by all means, take it. It's a good deal. It's going to be, if you play it to your level, you're going to leave $50 million on the table. But other than that, if that's what you're comfortable with, go for it. So I don't think Scott's going to prevent any long-term extension for any of these young players. It just comes down to Does Jackson Holiday want to be a Baltimore Oriole for this amount of time, or does Gunnar want to be an Oriole for this amount of time? And then there's also the responsibility when you're that good of a player. There are certain players, they like to raise the market for the rest of the league. And so there is that aspect where, you don't want to take a market deal if you're the best player in baseball or best prospect in baseball that ends up hurting another player down the road that might be willing to do the same thing. So it's a little bit more complicated. If it was just me, as a fourth outfielder, I'm taking anything. But when you're at the top of the market, there's a responsibility a little bit more beyond just the player that oftentimes gets overlooked.
Can I ask, just because it's interesting with Bobby Witt, right? Like, this is precedent setting for younger players. What do you think the reaction was from the player community about the Bobby Witt deal?
Probably a little bit of both. Like you're like, first off, players, we like seeing guys stick with one team. We love it. Like it's better for the game when like a certain player is synonymous with the organization or a franchise. You look forward to that. When you see the Royals are on the schedule, you're like, hell yeah, we're going to see Bobby Witt. I'm looking forward to seeing that. You also like it when a team like Kansas City is committed to winning. That's another optic that for players, you're like, hell yeah, that's awesome. Like, I want to go for Kansas City. They're willing to reinvest in their players. And then from ultimately the price and length of the contract, I think anything that's north of Ronald Acuna or Ozzie Albies, which is like a total scam by Atlanta. Players are happy like that. $26 million a year for essentially 11 years if he does the opt-ins is it's probably below market if he ends up being the superstar player. But that's hard to say. $277 million is not good enough. So that's. I think players are fine with his deal. They're completely comfortable with it. It's when you see like a front-loaded deal that is so below market, when that the player has a chance to, if you just go through arbitration, you make that. This is not the case. So the league is more or less happy about it.
So the long and short of it is the Orioles should get this done with Gunnar tomorrow, right? That's what we're really saying here, is that offer him slightly more than Bobby Witt and go get it done tomorrow, and everybody's happy. Yeah.
I mean, look, I always point this out. There's a reason why organizations offer these contracts early to players, is because it's still saving them money. Yeah. And it's still saving them decisions. One of the best things the front office can do is save themselves from heartache, and be put in a position where they're having to make a choice of a trade or something like that, because they're worried about free agency or losing this guy. So if I'm Baltimore, I'm doing the same type of thing, a 7-year guaranteed with some opt-outs after year 7. That way you have him in his peak years. If he wants to opt into those 3, you got it, and then you got a club option on the back end. And that's a nice structure for a win-win for both sides. You get somebody locked up, the city's pumped up, and then you have one of the league's best players in your uniform for a guaranteed 7 years, which is still a really damn long time. The average length of the major league career is less than 3 years. So that's the best way to think about it.
I'm taking it tomorrow. And actually, if it were to be announced tomorrow, we'd probably throw a parade, Ryan. That's the reality. At SpillyGoat19, of course, on Twitter is how you follow him. And what's the schedule look like for you with MLB Network Radio?
5 days a week, noon to, well, actually it's 2 to 5 Eastern. You can catch us on Loud Outs. And then, we're getting ready for spring training.
Always appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of you in Baltimore this season, and appreciate you spending time with us. Ryan Spilborghs with us here on GCR. It's interesting, right? He was a Boris client, and he says, don't just shut it down. Don't just say, no way, no how, no sir. I still think that you're fighting an uphill battle. I do think it's fascinating that Bobby Witt Jr., who presumably, I'm going to guess that Matt Holliday made more money than Bobby Witt Sr. did in their career, just because of the time and the caliber of player. Bobby Witt was a hell of a pitcher, but I think Matt Holliday was a more accomplished player. I'm going to guess that Matt Holliday was wealthier, although Bobby Witt's been working as an agent, so I don't know how that's I don't know if that came level, but it's interesting that someone that you would look at inherently and say, well, he comes from money, probably doesn't need money, was still willing to do it. And I wonder if there's a parallel there, perhaps, with Jackson Holliday. We can only hope. We can only hope.
Cardinals are paying Matt Holliday through 2029.
That was a deferred money deal?
Yeah.
How much was career earnings for Matt Holliday?
155 at the moment, 155 million,
Yeah.
and 164
Total.
by 2029.
And what was Bobby Witt Sr.'s career earnings? I'm going to guess it was not quite $100 million.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess, just because of the timing. Bobby Witt was a nice pitcher, but I'm going to guess he did not make anywhere close. I'll say 70 at most, 70 million. Maybe not even that.
Not Bobby Witt Jr.
No, I don't want Bobby Witt Jr.
No, neither do I.
He isn't.
Can I get back to you? I know.
It's that hard? All right, let's do County Sports Zone Radio. Why don't we do that? County Sports Zone Radio brought to you by Toyota. We are really happy. Toyota, if you think you know high school basketball, go to countysportszone.com where you can pick the winners and earn points to see where you stand on the leaderboard. That's at countysportszone.com, presented by your local Toyota dealers. And joining us every Tuesday to let us know what's going on in the world of local high school sports, he is our friend Wes Brown from County Sports Zone, and he's with us now here on GCR. Wes, it's Glenn. It's good to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start on the basketball side, and a couple of big storylines this week. You pointed out there's a big one, a big revenge game for South River against Arundel this past week.
Yeah. South River pulled out a nice 71-70 victory in a heck of a contest down there in Anne Arundel County. Arundel had beaten them by 10 at home early in December, so a tight battle there for two of the best teams there in Anne Arundel.
And then what's going on with St. Francis these days?
Yeah, last week we talked about how important it was for them to pull out that win against Glen Island Country, but then they've gone off and lost 3 in a row. Lost to Malik Washington and Spalding in a close game, but then 10 points to Goretti, and then a blowout loss to Paul VI. So stumbling a little bit there for one of the top teams in the state.
How is Malik Washington as a basketball player, by the way? I asked this like ironic. I'm kidding, but only a little bit. There's no world where like a team could, a school could say, hey, if we could let you be a walk-on off the end of the bench for basketball, maybe we can get you to come here and play quarterback. Is there?
I mean, there is, teams have tried it in the past. It's obviously a little difficult if you're, trying to be the quarterback on a good team, because then your December, is also cut into, and then you deal with, leaving right after football season. Maryland actually wanted to try that with Corey Dyches. He kept saying that he wanted to try and walk on the basketball team there, but he wasn't able to make it work. So it probably would be tough for a quarterback, but he's definitely talented. I think he had a double in that game. So he's just one of the best athletes overall in the state, not just the top quarterback.
Perhaps some people don't know that on Maryland's national championship roster years ago, quarterback Calvin McCall came off the bench for that Maryland basketball team. The player of the week for this past week also comes to us from basketball.
Yeah, Kenyon Johnson from Walkersville, 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks in a 66-49 win over Williamsport last night. So a strong win there. The Lions clinched a share of their division title for a 3rd straight season. So a strong player on a strong team. But that's pretty much a heck of an effort there for 19 and 13.
All right, he is Wes Brown, County Sports Zone Radio here on GCR. Let's hop over, as we were talking about football a second ago, the Big 33 All-Star event and some news related to rosters.
Yeah, so part of the fun part about the spring is the Big 33 game here between Pennsylvania and Maryland. Maryland hasn't, they've struggled a bit against Pennsylvania, but it's still always a good game. Part of the initial part of the roster is coaches going through and selecting some players that they think, should definitely be on the roster. And we had 2 unanimous selections this year. Keyshawn Mister, the quarterback, athlete out of Concordia Prep, who helped lead them to a B conference title. And then Carter Hess, an O-line D lineman from Fort Hill, one of the biggest, linemen and strongest guy that I saw at the MPSSAA championships. Pulled out a championship there as well. The rest of the rosters are going to be selected through, combines and workouts and all that stuff. With the game later this spring, but they've at least got the two, cornerstone pieces of this year's Big 33 roster.
Keyshawn Mister is going to Old Dominion, right? That's where he's committed to play. Yeah. And so run me through, when is the Big 33 game this year?
Memorial Day weekend,
Okay.
I believe, up in Hershey.
Yeah, they play it up in Hershey, and is it always does everybody always play, or do I remember that like some years some of the top guys don't play in the Big 33 game because they're just sort of getting on with what they're doing?
A lot of the top guys usually opt out, at least on the Maryland side of things. You don't usually get too many kids from, especially like the private schools, but usually you still get a decent crop of talent. And this year also the big thing for the Big 33 is someone from all these Super Bowls have been in there from the Big 33 game, and this year is the streak keeps going. So every single Super Bowl, there's been somebody who's participated in a Big 33
I don't think
game.
I even realized that. That's pretty remarkable. Remarkable that's the case. All right, remind everybody about what's going on at County Sports Zone.
Yeah, so 2.5 weeks left here of regular season play. You can tune into County Sports Zone for the scores, schedules, and all that stuff as we get ready for playoffs. And then also we have a CSC Pick'em, different contests for different counties throughout the week. Simply just sign up, select a contest, swipe either side for which team you think is going to win, and climb the leaderboard there. And you can invite friends and play along with there. So it's just a super fun way to be involved more with high school sports.
And it's, of course, countysports.zone, and then social media for CSC and for yourself.
Yep. Twitter and Instagram at CSC Scores, and then I am at W_Brown21.
Very good. Wes Brown, appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday, all right?
All right. Sounds good.
It's Wes Brown from County Sports Zone with us here for County Sports Zone Radio. Kevin Givens is a defensive tackle from the 49ers who is from Altoona, Pennsylvania. Went to Altoona area and played in the Big 33 game. He is who keeps the streak alive. They want it to be noted that Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs, is also someone who played in the Big 33 game. I would suggest that if that's how the streak has stayed alive, then the streak is not actually alive. I don't think that counts in any way. I think it's got to be a player, but they definitely have a player, Kevin Givens,
contributing to the game of football still.
That's fine, all well and good.
Streak.
But if you want it to be a streak, it's got to be a player. Got to be a player. By the way, Bobby Witt Sr., not even close. Not even in the same.
21 million, I believe.
Not even the stratosphere. So there is a significant difference there. Like Bobby Witt Jr. comes from wealth. Jackson Holiday comes from wealth.
Baseball field in his backyard.
Yes. Well, apparently.
Or they
in his garage.
Right, yeah.
That video of like he's got an apartment that like connects to an indoor baseball facility. Must be nice. Must be nice.
It really must.
Hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. It was brought to you by
Just want to hang out with
Superbook. Yeah, I mean it'd be cool. If I was young, like now I'd be over that. But it'd be heaven if I was 20. The coolest thing in the world. Just wake up and go hit the batting cages for a little while. It'd be awesome. Superbook has all of those props that you're looking for. You want to get in on the action. The line for the game continues to be 49ers -2. But they have so much more than that. They've got a squares that you can bet. Like you want to bet numbers for squares. They've got that available. You don't have to play it. This is not like when you play a squares contest and you get given numbers. You can go pick your own numbers. Right now at Superbook. If you think there's going to be a quarter that ends at 7-7, like that's going to be the score at the end of the first quarter, and you want the 7-7 square, go get it right now at Superbook, plus 400 odds at any quarter. So if it's 7-7, 17-7, 27-17, anything like that, the same way that you would win a squares contest, you can win from Superbook. That is available right now. And also, of course, tonight, Maryland hosts Rutgers, 8-point favorites, the Terps against the Scarlet Knights this evening. So get in on that action, superbook.com, download the Superbook app, use the code GlennClark23 when you sign up. You'll receive up to $250 in a same-day first bet match, win or lose. Speaking of Maryland, Patrick Stevens joins us next on GCR.
Hey, it's Jeremy Kahn. This postseason, bet in person at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks with locations in Canton and in Towson, and enjoy the best in-class sports wagering experience at their state-of-the-art facilities, bringing an unmatched sports betting thrill.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
There's so much focus on sports betting these days, but I want to talk about an area that nobody wants to gamble on, where you choose to go out and spend your hard-earned dollars to eat. The Costas Inn is no gamble at all. The quality on their menu is outstanding, and the value is off the charts with a great and varied list of specials Monday through Friday. And the staples of the menu, whether it's salads, burgers, fish, they're all fantastic. And I haven't even mentioned the crabs or crab cakes yet. So check out the menu for yourself at CostasInn.com. When choosing a place to dine, never gamble on the food you put in your belly. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard, or call 410-477-1975 for reservations and your steamed crab orders.
6 chicken tenders made from fresh, never frozen Royal Farms world-famous chicken, a family-sized order of Western fries, honey mustard dipping sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. It's Royal Farms' new Tucker's Tenders Meal. It's Justin Tucker's favorite, and at only $19.99, it'll be your favorite meal too. The new Tucker's Tenders Meal, available only at Royal Farms. Now you can kick back, relax, and eat like a champion. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flights Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
He is Drew Forrester, and he'll probably be with us tomorrow, I assume. Which is good, because I got to get into what's wrong with this country. I've got some stuff to get off of my chest. All right, today's show, Tuesday edition of the program. Still to come this morning, Ryan Jensen will join us. Of course, former Baltimore Ravens, Super Bowl champion, just announced his retirement from the NFL. But every Tuesday, we get caught up in what's going on in the world of local college sports with our friend, Mr. Patrick Stevens, at Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter is how you follow him, Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, among other places. Patrick, good morning, my friend. How are you, sir?
I am well this morning, Glenn. How are you?
Everything is good here. I don't know. That on Saturday night from Maryland was probably about.
And you look at the KenPom ranking. They're 6th nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency.
That's amazing.
6th. The last time Maryland ranked 6th or better in adjusted defensive efficiency in the KenPom rankings was the Steve Francis year.
That's incredible. That's really incredible.
Okay.
But that team could score.
Okay. That team also happened to be 16th in offense.
Yeah.
This team is 170th.
Yeah. Not so great.
So basically, if you take the adjusted offensive number, which is 106.7 points, adjusted for competition and all that, per 100 possessions, the last time that Maryland had a team that struggled as much offensively was Mark Turgeon's first season, which you might recall there was there were no players. A smaller scoring guard on that team.
That's true.
And they were really good at getting to the foul line, just like this team does.
Well,
but that team couldn't play defense. But that team couldn't play defense at all. Whereas this one can stop just about anybody. But if you can't score, it doesn't really matter, does it?
At what point are they officially out of time to try to put some sort of resume together?
Well, not having another trip, you look at the remaining road games, right? What's going to help you? And realistically, the only game on there that really helps you winning away from home is the Wisconsin game.
Wisconsin.
Like Ohio State, Rutgers, Penn State probably don't help you a ton. And candidly, at home, Rutgers, Iowa, Indiana probably don't help you a ton. So it's gotten late now. And it's getting to the point where they're reliably going to be in just about every game. And at this stage, if you're basically getting a split in games that you're in and game out, that sounds about right. But I do think the schedule helps them down the stretch. That closing stretch at Rutgers, Northwestern, Indiana, at Penn State, on paper is the sort of thing where you can string some wins together. But realistically, does any of them other than maybe beating Northwestern really help you? Probably not. So I suspect that what we're looking at, if we had to pull out a crystal ball and say, what are things going to look like in 6 weeks going into the Big Ten tournament, it'll be a team that is hanging on the periphery of the conversation. It's like you're going to have to go win like 3 games in 3 days or something like that to have a chance. And I don't know if they are deep enough or capable enough on offense to be able to pull that off, to string 3 good enough offensive performances together. I give them credit for having not packed it in when they very well could have at this point. But it is at the same time, there's just not enough. We can sit here and say it's inconsistency, but that's not the problem. It's consistent. Like
right.
this is a consistent
who they are.
thing.
Yeah.
This is who they are. They just struggle to score, and a lesser team would not be as good as this one is on defense and would be a complete mess. And instead, it's a team that has its limitations, but to its credit, has managed to kind of bob along. It's just not at the level necessary to be able to be an at-large team in all likelihood.
All right, so as we've talked about throughout the course of the season, the team that seems to have the best chance of any of the locals of getting to the NCAA tournament is Towson. Is what happened on Saturday just the lesson of the difficulty of playing on the road in the CAA with short turnarounds? Is there anything more that you read into that other than, you're going to lose a road game? It's probably not the end of the world that they lost this one.
Yeah, I am of the opinion that that losing a game to a decent Hofstra team, like Hofstra's probably underperformed a little bit in conference play, but losing to a decent Hofstra team and doing it in a very Towson way, which was playing pretty good defense. You only gave up 59 points. It's kind of a reminder that sometimes offense comes really, really hard for the Tigers, and we saw that even on Thursday in the first half when they were playing Northeastern. Right. That was not good, and they turned it around, played really, really well the final 25 minutes or so of that game, 28 minutes or so. And they won 5 in a row going into that. And they'd beaten Drexel, and they'd won at Charleston and Delaware. And so I'm not inclined to overreact to a 3-point loss on the road to a decent team when their strength held up as their typical strength. I mean, if that was a 80 spot that Hofstra had put up, maybe you sit there and wonder a little bit. But I also think that the schedule is very much in their favor over the next couple weeks. They get 4 of the next 6 at home, with the 2 road games in that stretch being at William and Mary and at Hampton, who are among the bottom 4 teams in the league. So I think that they can get on a roll a little bit here. And if they're sitting there and they've won something to the effect of, I don't know, maybe 9 out of 10 going into that Charleston game that's their home finale on the 24th of the month, that's a pretty good spot. And I think right now, too, we've talked about this many times. It's worth reiterating. Your goal in that league is get the double bye and put yourself in a spot where you only have to win 3 games. And right now, they're in a spot where they only have to win 3 games. And if you beat Delaware come Thursday, then you've created some separation between yourselves and the Blue Hens, and you have a season sweep. So I still think there's a lot to like there. I certainly question how efficient their offense is, but defensively they're going to be in just about every game because of how tough they are.
Patrick Stevens with us here on GCR. Before we get to lacrosse on the national front, I know a nice win for Kansas State, and of course Carolina beats Duke. Do we have any sense yet of the significance of the Dartmouth ruling, or do we still need to let that play out a little while before we can ever get to the bottom of what that's going to mean for college sports?
Well, there's going to be an appeal, and so there's that issue. All these things have, and I don't know specifically about this particular ruling, but how many things have we seen that everybody's gone, oh, this is great, but oh, look, here are the unintended consequences.
Yeah, there's been a few of those.
Okay, and so what's for a school to when I look at that and the unionization and all that, you can unionize, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing that says these schools have to pay people to do anything, right?
Right.
There's nothing to say you have to field a basketball team or a field hockey team or a men's soccer team or a golf team. And so it's not implausible that some schools might say, okay, we just won't do this anymore in certain sports. Now, it's also important to understand what the general idea of having non-rev sports is in a lot of schools, which is you bring in students that are not getting full rides for the most part. They're not getting full scholarships. So you're getting students into your student body that are paying you. And not only that, but especially at a school like a Dartmouth or a high-end academic school, you're banking on people having great experiences so that 30, 40 years down the road, they're giving you money after they've had, as they're in the middle of successful careers.
Yeah.
So there's all these little things. It's not just simply, oh, well, I'm an employee because I have to put all this work in because I'm a member of the basketball team. So you do this, and there's all sorts of threads and all sorts of ripples that could come of this. And I'm not a labor lawyer, and I don't claim to be.
Correct.
But I do think that sitting there saying that it's a really easy explanation would not be a very, very smart thing to do.
I think all of that makes a lot of sense, and I tend to agree with most of what you're saying there. All right, as far as the first weekend in lacrosse, I was over at Loyola, and to me it looked like a case of one team that had a lot of guys back and cohesiveness, and another team that didn't. And in that way, maybe I shouldn't have been all that surprised by the result of Loyola getting a really good win to open the season against Georgetown.
Hey, you even got to see the first successful challenge, I heard.
Sure did, and I was wrong. I was wrong. Both Gunkel and I thought absolutely that was a good goal. And then the thing at the half was amazing. It was incredible. I come away from it saying and we had the conversation a year ago. I don't think Loyola can keep winning at this clip without winning more faceoffs. And they got a little bit better in the second half, but it's so difficult to do that. I still think that comes away a bit alarming for their ability to compete at the highest level. And, I know Colgate didn't back it up against Syracuse. It's a quick turnaround and a tough spot to do it. But, that's a pretty statement win for Colgate and a reminder that the Patriot League's going to be really tough this year.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into – we know Army and BU are going to be pretty good because they've got a bunch of older guys. And, Lehigh acquitted itself pretty well in its first game under Will Scudder, the new coach who succeeded Kevin Cassis, and they lost by 2 at Rutgers. And Navy played well against Mount St. Mary's in its opener. So you're right. The Patriot League, not going to be a breeze. But if you're Loyola, you feel great about being able to have that much working for you at the offensive end, being able to get out and transition a little bit. Even without the face-off wins, they were still able to do that Loyola thing that they like to do. So, if you're Loyola, this is much preferable taking off Georgetown in the first weekend of the season rather than, waiting to play them in the middle of the week. That has not worked out for the Greyhounds very well over the last few years, playing them late in mid-April or so. So that's a plus for Loyola for sure. Elsewhere, I would say, Hopkins coin flip game against Denver. The funny thing about Hopkins was that it was not, they had good players last season, but it was a very balanced thing. There wasn't like a single guy that you were looking at and that was just going to be unstoppable. Now, the flip side of that is that that makes you kind of vulnerable. There's probably not somebody that's just going to carry you to a victory. And I suspect that Hopkins probably feels like it let one get away, having been up 3 with 4 minutes to play against Denver before J.J. Solstrop went nuts and scored 3 to close out regulation and then the winner in overtime. And Maryland had a bit of a scare too, by the way, down at Richmond.
Double
which is
overtime, right?
Really good team, Richmond. Basically brought back all but 4 or 5 guys from a team that was in the NCAA tournament last year. So not a surprise to me that Maryland had some problems there. And I think we'll hear from both of those teams before all is said and done.
So, of course, Towson Hopkins today stands out, and then this coming Saturday, Loyola, Maryland. Looks like a pretty good one at noon. All right, it's time for our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams this particular player has played for or managed? And the first one is our manager for this week. And it's 5 teams, but I would tell you he's yet to have managed a game for his 5th team. It's his current team is his 5th. So 5 teams, including this one, for Bob Melvin is the first name on our list.
Well, let's go in kind of reverse here, right? He's going into his first season with San Francisco.
Of course he is.
And he was in San Diego the last 2 or 3 seasons, correct?
Last 2 years, yep, 22
last
and 23.
2 years. And before that, he was in Oakland for what, like about 8 or 9 years, right?
11 years in Oakland.
11 years,
11 to 21, 11 seasons in Oakland.
And before that, he was in Arizona for what, maybe 3 or 4 years?
5 years there, 05 to 09.
And then Seattle before that to begin his managerial
I had
career.
utterly forgotten about Seattle, like completely.
So here's a question. Since you probably have it up,
yes.
How many teams did Bob Melvin play for?
And
I'm thinking.
Do you want to? Okay, so it doesn't count because he was never an All-Star, right?
He's never an All-Star. Yeah.
If you wanted to do this and we just save the other players that we had for next week, I'm totally good with it. But it is.
Let's do that. Let's just do a Bob Melvin special.
All right. It was 7 teams for Bob Melvin.
Okay. All right. Well, that's probably a little bit more than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Well, I remember him definitely with Detroit.
I don't. First of all, I don't know how you do, but that's where he started his career in 1985.
And then he was definitely a Giant then, too, correct?
He certainly was.
And I know he was an Oriole.
Most definitely was.
From there, it's pretty much guesswork for me, I'll admit.
And nothing more than a season now.
Nothing more than a season for anybody? Okay.
Yeah.
How about Texas?
Not Texas, no.
Yeah, see, this was guesswork.
Yeah.
Kansas City?
Kansas City, yes, in 1992. So that's the next stop.
Okay.
So he spent a full season somewhere in 93, and then despite the fact that it wasn't even a full season, he split 94 between 2 teams.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
A split season for the strike season.
Yes.
That's dicey. So Bob Melvin might have been a Red?
Oh, no, not a Red.
Not a Red. And how's about we throw the Cardinals in there?
If I told you should have just gone with the most reasonable guesses.
The most reasonable guesses might have been like Oakland, Seattle, and San Diego.
Well, yeah, just go with the teams that he managed. I was going to say go with the teams that everybody tends to play for.
So the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and the Yankees.
The Red Sox and the Yankees are definitely 2 of them. The Red Sox in 93, the Yankees to start 94, and then he was traded to or I don't actually know if it was even a trade. He finished 94 with the White Sox, and that was the last step in his career. All right, we'll save the others for next week. What's your schedule look like for this week, sir?
Headed to College Park. I was thinking of stopping in an orchard, getting a peach basket for tonight's game.
You think this one's going to take basketball back a little way?
Well, here's the thing. See, when you look at how things will look in conference play, Rutgers and Maryland are the 2 least efficient offensive teams in Big Ten play, and the 2 most efficient defensive teams in Big Ten play. So, it's a day to take the under, I expect. I don't know what the under is specifically, but I do think that we're looking at a pretty low scoring.
I was trying to pull up what that number is.
We'll be at George Mason, Loyola Chicago tomorrow, Mount St. Mary's Manhattan on Thursday, and then UConn and Georgetown in what does not line up to be a particularly close game.
Yeah, that looks like that could be a bit lopsided.
on Saturday down in DC. I saw Marquette put on a show on Saturday down there. I mean, that Georgetown played a part in it, but man, like you watch Marquette when they're at their best, and you're ready to hop on that bandwagon, thinking that they could make a deep run.
But another opportunity to see Cam Spencer, obviously, on
It
Saturday,
is another opportunity to see Cam Spencer.
who's been playing well. He has been playing really well. By the way, the number for tonight is 127.5. That is the total for.
It'll look like the Virginia game last night tonight, maybe.
Well, I don't even know what was.
Might be, yeah. That was pretty bad last.
Yeah. Virginia-Miami, it was like, what was it? Miami scored 38 points.
60 to 38.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Yes,
oh,
there it is.
The last time Miami scored 38 points in a game was December of 1948.
Oh my.
Jesus. Oh, that is bad.
Now, it's helped by the fact that there was a 15-year stretch where Miami didn't have basketball.
Yeah, still. All right.
And to give you a sense of that game back in 48, they actually won it. They beat Princeton, which apparently has played slow down offense since the beginning of time.
Exactly right. Exactly.
37-35, and now and that's all you need to know about the Miami 1948-49 basketball.
Look at you. That's our guy. That's Patrick Stevens at Discourse, D1S Course, The Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, etc. Always appreciate you, pal. Let's talk again next Tuesday. All right.
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
That's Patrick Stevens with us here on GCR. Okay, two things. So we have to make a decision. I don't know if you saw the tweet from John in Little Rock.
Oh, I think I saw it, yeah.
Creed is coming to Baltimore in November. Now. The agreement was you had to go next summer. That was what we said the penalty was. And Mike, I don't even know if you're still going to be part of this program come next November. I don't even know if this program will still exist.
Exactly. That's why I'm all good with putting it off, yeah.
Right, yeah. You put it off and you hope that we all just die? Is that what you're hoping?
No.
Is that the world just ends between now and November? I'm opposed.
Okay.
I'm opposed to us pushing it off that. It's just a long time. We had to deal this once with Andrew Stecca because the pandemic hit and he couldn't come back home in order to pay off one of his bets. And the things that we forget about and the sting is kind of gone from it a little bit. Also, in football season, we don't need more content. We have lots of content during football season. In the summer, we tend to use a little bit more content. So my opinion is that you should still have to go. Now, if it's getting into astronomical territory as far as tickets are concerned, and it is such an ungodly significant difference, we'll talk about it, but you need to present me that evidence quickly.
Okay.
All right? I am of the opinion that you need to go next summer because that was what was agreed upon, and that's the way that it works. That's my opinion. You can float it out to the rest of the boys if you would like. Speaking of which, the boys have done a very terrible job of presenting me side bet ideas for this week. So today, at some point, I'm just going to make the decision on my own. I'm going to end up doing it because you guys have done a wretched job. Would you please send a text to everybody? Remind them the circumstances. This week's picks are irrelevant, so what we'd like to do is a prop-based side bet game, but we need suggestions for the side bet.
Okay.
Send it out to the crew.
Make sure I have the right group chat here.
All right. Yeah, don't send it to the one where you send those other pictures. Don't send it to that chat. And then tell them the decision's going to be made by the end of by a COB today. COB, we're making a decision about this. And I don't want to hear from anybody who's like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do that. No. You had your time. We're a team here. We gotta close this with a bang, or else the hell is the point of doing this? So that's what I want. So we can have a fun pick segment on Thursday and bet on some of these Super Bowl props. All right? We got to make a decision, and if they don't come up with good ideas, then I'm making the decision. I will be the cheer-tater. This is not a cheermocracy. This is a cheer-tatership, and I am the cheer-tater, and that's the way that it will go. Today's show brought to you by, this one's brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Griffin, what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel?
Sports and Social, the place to be this Sunday for the big game at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. It features an on-site FanDuel location, and it is your ultimate spot to watch the big game on the massive 100-foot media wall. So order up your favorite game day bites, take a sip from our signature crushes and extensive beer selections, all just steps from the FanDuel Sportsbook. So watch, wager, and win at Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland this Sunday. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, when we come back in, Ryan Jensen, former Raven, Super Bowl champion, had to announce his retirement from the NFL after some injuries that he's been through. We're going to catch up with him next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door. Just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code GlennClark23, GLENNCLARK23. So bet with the best and use the promo code GlennClark23 this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There's so much focus on sports betting these days, but I want to talk about an area that nobody wants to gamble on, where you choose to go out and spend your hard-earned dollars to eat. The Costas Inn is no gamble at all. The quality on their menu is outstanding, and the value is off the charts with a great and varied list of specials Monday through Friday. And the staples of the menu, whether it's salads, burgers, fish, they're all fantastic. And I haven't even mentioned the crabs or crab cakes yet. So check out the menu for yourself at CostasInn.com. When choosing a place to dine, never gamble on the food you put in your belly. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard, or call 410-477-1975 for reservations and your steamed crab orders.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and it's our very special annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we celebrate Orioles manager Brandon Hyde as our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and the Orioles as our Team of the Year, with Stan the Fan Charles and Glenn Clark sitting down with Hyde to discuss his role in creating the culture that defined the Orioles' magic season. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of 2023. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Ravens, Terps, and O's at PressBoxOnline.com.
Hey Ravens fans, looking for the perfect new game day brew? Get a Guilford, Baltimore's finest craft beer during the next home game at the bank. That's not all. Gather your flock next home game and check out Guilford Hall Brewery's brand new bar, the Gilly Nest, located near Section 505. No tickets? No problem. Enjoy all Ravens games all season long at our restaurant and brewery in Station North. Guilford Hall Brewery, European tradition, Baltimore charm.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue to move along here on a Tuesday edition of the program. John from Little Rock says peanut butter and corn sandwich with cheese doodles. I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as long as I don't have to.
That sounds terrible. So
corn sandwich.
I do like it to be.
Sounds like a yes from Ken.
Ken's just gonna say no to everything just to be a jerk. I do like it to be somehow related to either like the game or a trend, Vegas, or a trend that's like I don't like it to be utterly random. Like, we like doing these things because, you know, it's a trend on the internet, or some athlete acknowledges they liked it and people are talking about it, or, you know, it's related to a team involved or something like that. Like, I wanted it to be something Uncrustable related. So if you could come up with a gross version, like of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich where we have to take the crust off too, like I'd listen to that. And this is,
somewhat.
This is in the neighborhood of that. Peanut butter and corn with cheese doodles. I mean, it's gross, but it doesn't sound like revolting. It just sounds like why? Like, why would anyone do that? That's what I'm looking for. It's a good start to the conversation, and it's at least a suggestion, which is one more than everybody else has made so far. So I like that, but I need more as we continue to try to figure out what we're going to do as punishment for a side bet this week with picks, as we would like to do another picks contest for the Super Bowl and all of the props. From Dan. Dan says, I don't really have a lot to say about Toby Keith. I was not like a particularly big Toby Keith fan, but I did like some Toby Keith songs, man. Like, How Do You Like Me Now is a song that I always liked, and I would always sing along to. Like, anybody of a certain age, if you didn't like Should Have Been a Cowboy, what are we doing? I don't know. I like some Toby Keith songs. So whatever your opinion of him, I'm not trying to suggest that he was like a transcendent musician or anything along those lines. I think he was kind of a silly country music singer. But I like kind of silly country music sometimes. I like kind of silly anytime music. So, yeah, awful news. Awful news today. Thank you for bringing that up. Awful news about Toby Keith passing away. I didn't know anything that he was going through, but safe home to Toby Keith, who has passed away at the age of 62. Was also a football player, if I remember correctly. I don't know if he played in college, but I think he played like semi-pro football. Big dude, Toby Keith. I saw him somewhere, like Farm Aid or something like that. Some show that I was at, Toby Keith played, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, not that I was a big, massive fan. It was just cool that I didn't know he was there. So, awful, wretched news about the passing of Toby Keith. Chris, the Dartmouth thing that we just brought up with Patrick Stevens. And I don't know what to make of it at this point. Dartmouth, the National Labor Relations Board officially ruled that Dartmouth basketball players are, I'm reading the story from the Associated Press. An NLRB, National Labor Relations Board regional official, ruled on Monday that Dartmouth basketball players are employees of the school, clearing the way for an election that would create the first labor union for NCAA athletes. All 15 members of the Dartmouth men's basketball team signed a petition in September asking to join Local 560 of the Service Employees International Union, which already represents some other employees at the Ivy League school in Hanover, New Hampshire. Unionizing would allow the players to negotiate not only over salary, but working conditions, including practice hours and travel. Quote, because Dartmouth has the right to control the work performed by the Dartmouth men's basketball team, and the players perform that work in exchange for compensation, I find that the petition for basketball players are employees within the meaning of the National Labor Relations Act, unquote, NLRB Regional Director Laura Sachs wrote. In a statement, Dartmouth basketball player representatives Cade Haskins and Romeo Myrtle called the ruling, quote, a significant step forward for college athletes, unquote, adding, quote, we are excited to see how this decision will impact college sports nationwide, unquote. They also announced plans to form the Ivy League Players Association for basketball players across the league. I don't know, and Patrick sort of alluded to this, because what does this mean? One, as Patrick pointed out, it's going to be appealed. Like, this is not going to end here, and it will be interesting to see how it goes. This is basically a ruling of one person. It will be interesting to see how it goes on appeal, but even if it stands, and I would argue maybe that it should stand, but even if it stands, I don't know that it means that suddenly Dartmouth is going to be paying their basketball players. In unionizing, it might be interesting to be able to go to the table to talk about, like, for example, the travel portion of this is really interesting to me. You're talking about a point in which college athletics is going to be ripped apart based on, I say ripped apart, that's not the way to say it. It's going to be wildly different now for athletes with conferences that are in no ways regional, that are all over the country. Almost every conference is going to be that way. And for football, that's one thing. But for sports that play midweek, it will be far more interesting to see what the impact of that is. In football, Maryland will travel to the West Coast twice next year. Not the end of the world. In field hockey, in basketball, maybe in basketball. And look, I'm sure that these conferences are going to work to try to minimize the impact of how much they travel. But there's only 4 teams on the West Coast in the Big Ten. They're going to have to travel a lot more in order to play all these games. So it will be interesting to see. Maybe the only impact of this is it allows athletes to go to the table to say, this is absurd. Like, you don't just get to keep making these decisions without the input from the parties involved. Now, I don't think you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. I don't think you can get the West Coast teams out of the ACC and the Big Ten and the Big 12. I think that's done. But it will be interesting to see if there is any impact of unionizing from that standpoint. I don't think that part of this is that it's going to force schools to directly pay players, but it might forward that conversation. I think there's a lot of people that are asking these questions out loud. Well, hey, if we're basically doing this anyway, why don't we just do it directly? And maybe there can be a benefit to us. Like, that there are schools that are thinking to themselves, well, maybe if we just signed a contract, then we wouldn't have these players jumping into the portal every year, and it might make our coaches' jobs easier. Now, that doesn't allow them to kick them out. You know what I mean? Like, if they have a contract, they have a contract, and it becomes a difficult two-way street. But those conversations have been had. It's interesting, like what Jeff Hafley was the Boston College coach who left to take a job with the Packers. And that was felt like one of those, hey, this just ain't worth it. College coaches, and I know that was a coordinator job, right? Like he was defensive coordinator
with Green Bay.
So that's not. Somebody would say that's a jump that's worth making anyway, because that gets you on track to be an NFL head coach. So even if it wasn't frustration with the difficulty of the job, if that opportunity was on the table, you take it 10 times out of 10. But it will be interesting to see if there are more of these instances, more times where you see college coaches say, it's just, I just don't want to do this. Which I don't feel sorry for them for in any way. Like, they're getting paid, they're getting compensated. That's the nature of the job. You deal with that. But if that leads to the schools and the powers that be saying, maybe we don't really want constant free agency. Well, how do we try to get around that? With contracts. Now, is a 17-year-old kid willing to sign a contract? Probably.
And they all
the promise of money that now the guys that are the most highly sought after recruits might say, I'm not signing a 4-year deal somewhere.
So that would prohibit them from going to the NBA or the NFL. They'd have to stay 4 years at school, or
that would be interesting. That would probably be something they'd have to write that into a contract. Or that's an interesting. Like, is it a 4-year contract with a pro out? Is the deal just you can't play for another college during the course of these 4? This is a totally different world that we're talking about that's not precedented, but that would be an interesting argument. Or would it be a 4-year, hey, you're committed to playing here for 4 years no matter what? I would feel like that would be more easily breakable, like in court, to say, that
this is an 18-year-old kid.
But to say a non-compete, like you can't go compete against us.
Gotcha.
Going somewhere else when we've
Would
got
it
a
be
contract.
If you're at Maryland, you can't transfer to a Big Ten team or something.
I would think that they would have the ability to say, like, if you have a contract to play with an NFL team, you can't just say I want out to go play for another NFL team. You can always retire. You can always stop playing NFL football. And that would be what going to the NFL would be. Like, you can stop playing college football. But and it might be different for everybody. Again, it might be that the 5-star recruits that are getting the $1 million in NIL money that now maybe a school's willing to take in-house and say, well, we'll just pay you the money ourselves, which is essentially their NIL collectives work hand in hand with them anyway. So why not just take it in-house? If this gets broken down and this ruling stands and athletes are recognized as employees moving forward, if that proves to be the case, then it will be interesting to see what the next, ramifications of that are. What are the next implications for what that means? And the next one to me would be that the schools recognize they're better off just doing these things in-house and then writing contracts. Let's just go ahead and pay the athletes. Let's do that. They get to keep their, it's not every sport that would have that, obviously. It'd be very rare that non-rev athletes would demand contracts. It's not entirely true. We've seen lacrosse players that have done really well in NIL. But would they demand contracts? I'm not sure. But if they do and the school's willing to pay them, then you give them a contract. I mean, it doesn't seem all that difficult. I think the point is if there's money to be made, if there's profit to be made, the schools might say, why aren't we just doing this? Why don't we just hire someone? If there are businesses that are willing to pay money to get this kid to play at Miami, why don't we just have them give us the money? What are we doing here? Why don't we just run this if there's profit to be made? Now, somebody would say there's no profit to be made. This is just about, business owners who have money to throw around that want their teams to succeed, and so they're willing to throw it at players. But, again, why wouldn't the school want a piece of that? It's all, I'm speculating, and I don't have answers. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't know that it will stand to the point that, they will – I don't know that the union will hold up permanently. I don't know. That's kind of a we'll see
and so not
sort of situation.
So not every school necessarily would have to do this either. Like if
presumably
one by one.
Presumably if it stands, then why wouldn't every athlete at every school look to do the same thing? Like what's the harm?
Right.
I mean, the schools will fight against it. They'll do the bit that everybody tries to do in business. Where hey, we want to tell you about all the harms of unionizing, and everybody looks around like, what? What are you talking about? They'll all attempt to do it, but there's no actual reason why anybody wouldn't. You want what?
John sent in another
suggestion.
Yeah, another suggestion.
We'll look at it in a second.
Okay.
I don't know if it holds up, but I also don't. Again, I think right now college. We're in a very interesting period for college athletics, so they've got to figure out what this thing is actually going to look like moving forward. And the thing that when they keep saying Wild Wild West, I don't. It's not the Wild Wild West. I just don't think it's as organized as they'd like it to be, and I think that's the headache. Is the organization. Part of the headache undoubtedly is that the athletes now have power, and they don't like that. There's no doubt. They don't like the athletes having power. But it would seem like the way to go about trying to combat that, and I don't say it, again, like it's a bad thing, because I don't think it's a bad thing that the athletes have power. The way to combat it is via contracts, is via recognizing that student athletes are employees of the school, particularly in the sports that are profitable. And that's a strong argument to make. If you're making money off of us, then we're employees. And so if that's the case, I would think the contracts would be the way to combat it. To say, look, let's just acknowledge what this is. We're making money off of you. That's fine. You're going to build still the education into the contract. And not everybody, like it might very well be, you're still operating on the what is this athlete worth? And that's where the job of the general managers alongside the coaches will become more interesting moving forward. But I think it'll be basketball, football. That might be the case. It might be that that's the sustainable way for college athletics to continue, is to recognize, just for them to say, you're right. These are employees, so let's give them contracts. Let's include the education as part of the deal, and we'll present it all to you. Here's what we think you are worth. And it clearly wouldn't be the same for a Loyola basketball player as it would be for a North Carolina basketball player. And there might be no money involved. It might be that the contract is simply providing the education and other, benefits of being an athlete. Maybe every now and then there's a Santi Aldama that they say, hey, we'll toss in
some incentives, yeah.
A little bit of NIL money that we can find somewhere in order to pull this off, maybe every now and then. But presumably at lower levels, there's just not going to be the demand for that. Doesn't appear to exist.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, if they are start adding in incentives, if you average 10 rebounds, in a season, then these guys are. Do we start seeing a lot more stat padding in a?
Well, yeah, it's a different conversation. I'm not too worried about that. All right. So John suggested one more from John. John said, lime jello with pears, but with cheddar or cottage cheese. Yeah, that doesn't
looks disgusting.
Really.
It sounds disgusting to me.
Does it?
I guess I don't like cottage cheese.
I don't love cottage cheese. I'm not a big cottage cheese guy. But in comparison to other things, that's what John Proctor said. Not the worst thing we've seen on here. I would agree. In comparison to other things we've done, lime jello with pears, but with cheddar or cottage cheese. I don't know. Nick Kelly suggested sauerkraut juice cocktail. Sauerkraut juice can be purchased in cans and prepared for serving in the following manner. A can of sauerkraut juice, a teaspoon of bottled condiment sauce. What is that? A teaspoon of prepared mustard, salt to taste, and a speck of pepper. That's super gross. That sounds awful. And I'm even a man that's come around on sauerkraut in my life. I'm actually a sauerkraut fan now, but that sounds truly terrible. And it also seems difficult in the preparation. I don't know. Can you actually go purchase sauerkraut juice in a can? Is that actually available somewhere? I don't. That sounds like something that Nick Kelly's pulled out of a magazine from 1943.
Sauerkraut juice.
Yeah, I don't know that you can actually.
I don't see. Oh, there's a can actually. Frank's kraut juice. Sounds.
I feel like we got it. But is there a tie-in or is it just?
I think it's it's just what Nick Kelly pulled out of that.
John in Little Rock's argument was
that the pear thing is
something that they make in Kansas City. Ugh. All right, I'll keep thinking about it. Do we know what the story is?
He's stuck in a meeting at the moment. I think we're gonna try and catch up with him later.
Okay,
later,
as in tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay,
as in tomorrow.
So it is.
Yes.
So it is. Apologies, Ryan Jensen got caught up, and we'll try to make that happen tomorrow. As always, you get two. That's the way that it goes. And then, although I like Ryan, so I'd probably be willing to work with him. All right. Well, then let's, I guess, did we take all of our breaks? Are we good
did,
there?
Yes, we did.
Look at that. We're going to wrap the show up on time today. Oh, what a weird world. There wasn't a lot of sports at trivia last night. Not a great night. Apparently, this is first of all, the most disturbing thing that happened at trivia last night. Question is, what's the state drink of Maryland?
State drink. What, like pink lemonade?
What? Why would pink lemonade be the state drink of Maryland?
Because I like it.
What? What are you, 6?
I mean, pink lemonade.
Griffin's like, do you have any pink lemonade?
Old Bay vodka. Like, I don't know.
Well, no, the obvious answer would be a black-eyed Susan. Like, that would be the thing.
Yeah. Black-eyed Susan.
If you're going to have a state drink of Maryland, it'd be a black-eyed Susan. Now, it was pointed out by someone at the table, like, would at some point they have changed it to a crush? And it was a good argument, right? But we did find out in the question it said it was established in 1998. So the crushes didn't really – their popularity came in the 21st century, so that didn't make sense.
I don't know.
So we just went with Black-Eyed Susan, which was the obvious answer.
And it was correct?
No.
Oh.
Not
espresso martini.
Correct. Nope. Dumber.
Seabreeze.
Dumber.
Dumber. Jack and Coke. Like,
Dumber.
Gin and tonic.
Dumber.
Miller Lite.
You are really, really dumber than Miller Lite.
Dumber than Miller Lite.
Dumber. And more basic.
Than
Miller
Natty
Lite.
Bo.
No.
Oh.
Dumber and more basic.
You got Coors Light.
No.
Bud Light.
Dumber and more basic.
I'm trying to think of what's more basic than a light beer.
Dumber and more basic than pink lemonade.
Water.
Close. Do you know who the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens was in 1998?
Was that Jim Harbaugh?
It was Jim Harbaugh. And I think these two things might be related now, knowing this. Because in 1998, no.
Coffee?
The official drink of the state of Maryland is milk.
Oh.
The dumbest thing that I have ever heard in my
other state drinks?
Frankly, we deserve to have lost our first ever home AFC championship game because of this. This is a shame upon our state. This is an embarrassment. This is laughable. Everyone else should be looking at us like big, stupid idiots.
Half the state's milk is the
We got to do
state
something
beverage.
about this. We have to do something about
Kentucky,
this.
Nebraska, South Carolina.
Imagine
Virginia,
they don't
Wisconsin.
even drink milk when you go to school
Delaware.
in Kentucky and you're in 6th grade, they give you bourbon with lunch.
PA, Tennessee, Oklahoma.
This is of
both Carolinas.
no value to our society.
Both Dakotas.
It's laughable. Big Milk apparently started doing some
Big Milk.
They got involved. They started pushing all these states to put over milk. And it's a joke. And it's time for us to do something about it.
I'm moving to Arizona. Lemonade is the state drink.
That's lame, too. What is the point? Now, if you wanted to say we want to have a state non-alcoholic drink and a state alcoholic drink, I guess. If that's really what you want to do, God bless you. Go ahead and do that. But what is the point? Everyone knows milk exists. The idea is to have something interesting.
Indiana, the state drink is water.
Of course it is. It's the least surprising thing. Although, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was milk there either. Yeah, we're
not going to be surprised by Ohio's either. Well, I mean, you'll be surprised, but then you'll be like, yeah.
Ohio is...
Yeah, should I have you guess it?
I don't know what.
Tomato juice.
I almost said the F word out loud. What is the point of having a state drink?
That's a good question.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah, there should be state
it's
cocktails.
It's an embarrassment for an entire country. This is so incredibly stupid.
Ohio was the first state to do a state beverage in 1965.
Well, do they have a lot of tomatoes in Ohio or something? Is there some reason why it makes sense? We don't make more milk. It'd be one thing if we were America's Dairyland. If you're in Wisconsin and the state beverage is milk, you're like, okay, I get it, right?
It is.
Awful lot of dairy farms out here. There's something to be said for that. It's not like Maryland produces more milk than any other place produces. So stupid. So stupid and an embarrassing
Did anyone get it right?
Right? Yes, one team got it right. And then you know what? They won. That was the difference.
They got that right. They just said you win.
Proctor says, I could see a Bloody Mary with an Old Bay rim as being, should probably be a crush. That's our thing. That's our thing. Stupid, big stupid state, big stupid. I hate it. Yeah,
Don't
apparently
talk about Maryland that way.
Apparently, the final question was common knowledge. What president was late? Who was the only president to have been elected to be a senator after they served as president? Apparently, super common knowledge. We actually guessed it, got it right, but wagered 0 because we were utterly guessing.
Woodrow Wilson.
And truth be told, we were kind of playing the odds because there are multiple Johnsons that have been presidents, so we just wrote Johnson as the answer. It was Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson.
And apparently,
of course,
this was super common knowledge.
Everyone.
Because we went into the final question in 3rd place. We got it right and finished in 7th.
Wow. So it was a big letdown week.
Just like we expected. Huge letdown spot for our team after winning last week. Got no playoff points. We might not make the playoffs, but part of that is because we didn't show up for a couple weeks during the holidays. What else is there?
Disappointing.
The only sports. It was only sports adjacent. No, that's not true. The one was easy. What are the 4 teams that have never made a Super Bowl?
Texans.
Yep.
Jags.
Yep.
I mean, I'll get them. Just give me a minute here. Lions. Teams to not make a Super Bowl here. Let's go with. They did. They won one.
It's going through every team in the NFL right now. Yep. He's trying to buy enough time that Ryan Jensen could still join us.
Right. Is it that? No, it's not them.
John Little Rock wants
Tennessee
to know that milk is also the state drink of Arkansas. You're a stupid state, too.
It's half the states. Literally,
no, the Tennessee Titans lost to the St. Louis Rams, famously. Remember Kevin Dyson?
Oh, yeah.
Extended out and came up 1 yard short.
Then it's got to be the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, Cleveland Browns, of course. Okay. That was a very easy question. Yes. And then the other one was only sports adjacent.
When were the Raiders in the Super Bowl?
The Raiders have won Super Bowls. The Raiders have been in a ton of Super Bowls.
This is why we would have been a team. I wasn't gonna. That's why I didn't guess the Raiders, but they were in my mind. Like,
remember when I had said that you could feel free to join us?
I got it right. I got the answer. I got the question.
After you got it wrong. You guessed the Titans, and you were wrong.
Well, it's because I skipped the AFC North. If I had done the AFC North first, it would have been like, oh yeah, the Browns.
What former baseball player is running to replace Dianne Feinstein as a senator in California?
Is it like? I'm trying to think of what baseball player would make sense. Billy Beane.
It's definitely not Billy Beane.
Like they're from California. Did they play for one of the California teams?
Did play in California, yes.
How old are they? They like
75.
Oh my gosh!
Of course. That's what we do in this country.
So then I'm not gonna have. So, I mean, they played
entire
with Jim Palmer.
career with 2 teams, both in California.
I'm not gonna get this.
I believe still owns the record, the National League record for the most consecutive games played. Significantly short of the record for most consecutive games played, but I believe owns the National League record.
They try to make that a thing, or will we make that a thing if the National League record comes close to getting broken? Like Aaron Judge?
No. It's like, I think it was 1,000. I mean, hang on a second.
I have no idea because I can't.
They didn't give you this hint, by the way. I'm giving you extra hints. Yeah. They only said what former baseball player. Played in 1,207 consecutive games, the National League record.
It's not bad.
I mean, you say it's not bad. It's not even half of the actual record. Like, it's not bad, I guess, and no one's probably will never see another 1,200 consecutive game streak ever again. But still,
I got nothing. Reggie Jackson, no,
did not play his entire career in California. Quite famously,
his entire career. I thought you said
entire career
yeah.
with 2 teams in California.
Both in California.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get this. Kirk Gibson.
It's Steve Garvey, and I very much knew that. So that was good news. That was the good news, is that we got that one easily.
Is he gonna win?
No, he's running as a Republican in a state that does not elect Republicans to statewide offices. Yeah. Not going to happen. But he's getting a lot of attention because he's Steve Garvey. Like, he's like, the Republican Party was probably right to run him because otherwise no one would care who the Republican nominee was in California. At least this is getting some attention and maybe drives a couple of Republicans out to vote, but not enough to win. It's just the nature of the beast, nature of what you're up to. All right. Anyway, let's get a tidbit.
Okay.
Tidbit brought to you by the print issue of Press Box. Final days for this print issue of Press Box, our annual best of issue. Go get it at your neighborhood Royal Farms today. And then coming soon, a look ahead to the spring issue of Press Box is all I'll say. That's coming soon. What you got?
So Kansas State, they won. They beat number 4 Kansas last night.
Right after Kansas had beat Houston.
Yes.
This is why college basketball is crazy, right? Like the teams that had the biggest wins also had, because what Carolina beat Duke right after they lost to Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the nature of the beast.
There's now been 26 wins by an unranked team over an AP top 10 team in the last 31 days. That is the most such wins over any 30-day span or 31-day span in the poll era since it expanded to 25 teams in 1989. So,
by the way, Proctor's on one today. Proctor said, 1,200 games, not quite the Iron Man, maybe Aluminum Man. Not bad. He also said, you should let Griff know that Steve Garvey is not the host of Family Feud. And
okay,
I was different guy.
I did almost think that. Thank you, John.
Different guy, yes.
I'm going to stick with more Corbin Burnes stats here. He has the second most strikeouts since the start of 2020 in all of Major League Baseball. So I want to see if we can go ahead and round out the top 10.
2020?
Since 2020. He has the second most strikeouts.
Verlander.
Verlander is not in the top 10 here. He missed part of a season. I think, he missed one of the.
I'm trying to remember who hasn't missed part of a season. Cole?
Yes, Garrett Cole is number 1. Corbin Burnes, number 2.
I'm doing the top 10?
Yes.
Yikes.
You'll get it.
Maybe. Snell?
Blake Snell he's 11th.
I'll get it.
Let's get top 11.
I'll get it. Shohei.
No, not Shohei.
Gausman.
Kevin Gausman, yes, number 4.
Yu Darvish.
Darvish is just outside. He is 14th.
Scherzer.
Scherzer is, yes, he is 7th here.
How about Dylan Cease?
Dylan Cease, yes, he is 5th, right behind Gausman. And one spot ahead of his teammate, or former teammate.
Chris Sale?
Not Chris Sale.
So a former White Sox.
Yeah, he was traded last year. Former
White Sox was traded last year. Got him in a field. Rodon.
No,
not Rodon. Rodon.
He's traded, or he played for 3 different teams last year, I think.
Played for 3 different.
Yeah.
Wow. Who am I?
We wanted the Orioles to get him.
Why am I blanking on this? Maybe because he pitched for so many teams.
Yeah.
Giolito?
Lucas Giolito.
All right, yeah.
He's traded to the Angels, and then they waived him, and then the Guardians picked him up.
That's right. I do remember that now. Jeez.
6th on this list since 2020.
I haven't been in baseball mode for a little while. Like, this really is the difficulty. Is it takes me a while to ramp back up into like all my baseball checks out at the end of the, and then I got to ramp. I'm like, right. And all my football checks out for a little while, and then I forget who plays for who. We used to do that as a bit before the season would start. We'd do you remember what team this player plays for?
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Fun bit. I always liked that bit. All right. How about Aaron Nola?
Aaron Nola is number 3. You have the top 7 done.
Look at me.
Yeah.
I'm the prettiest girl.
You want to give it to you? Just leave the top 3 here, or the bottom 3 here.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get out of here on time, and now it's already 12:04. But I stand by that the milk rant needed to happen.
It's true.
I don't know. Charlie Morton, he was an answer.
Charlie Morton, he is 10th.
He was on the last one that you gave me. That's
the
only reason Zach Wheeler.
Zach Wheeler.
Hell yeah!
He's rolling. Can he stay hot? Get the last one here.
Shane Bieber.
No, not Shane Bieber.
All right, who is it?
It is out in Seattle, Luis Castillo.
Luis Castillo. Okay, very good, very good. Tidbit was also brought to you today by Goose Flights, available everywhere, more or less. Not really everywhere, but a lot of places. Cans available at Glory Days Grill, as well as Alonzo's and the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton. Also, cans and six-packs can be found at Guilford Hall Brewery in Station North, as well as at Costas Inn. And six-packs and cases available at the Wine Source in the Hamden. $1.98 from every can sold goes to benefit the Goose Flights Foundation and the work they're doing to provide non-emergency medical transport for those in need. Find out more, PressBoxOnline.com/gooseflights. Tubular is brought to you by, Superbook. Love Superbook. Get in right now. I told you they got the Squares contest available. If you're listening to Patrick Stevens and the under being the play in the Maryland game tonight, 127.5. That's a heck of a number. Got to be in for a miserable evening of watching basketball if that's the case. But if you feel it,
I like defensive basketball.
Go sign up. I like
those Virginia games.
I like more so than when I watch
40.
the NBA. Like I'd like there to be some defense being played, but not that. No, I'm not really into that. Go sign up right now. Superbook.com. Download the Superbook app. Use the code GlennClark23. When you sign up, you'll receive up to $250 in a same-day first bet match, win or lose.
They also have a bunch of Taylor Swift-themed odds boosts for the big game.
No, thank you. No, thank
the
you.
1989 boost. Kelsey to have 89 yards. Marquez Valdez-Scantling to have 19 receiving yards. So,
no, thank you.
That's all you need.
No, thank you. All right, Superbook.com. Download the Superbook app. Here's what's coming up tonight. Totally Tubular. As we mentioned, Maryland hosting Rutgers this evening. It's actually a cool thing where Big Ten Network tonight is all Maryland Rutgers because the men play at 6:30 and then the women up in Piscataway at 8:30. Both games on Big Ten Network. Towson Johns Hopkins lacrosse at 4 o'clock on ESPNU. Big Ten hoops tonight on Peacock. Indiana, Ohio State at 7. Michigan State, Minnesota at 9. The rest of the college basketball you can find at GlennClarkRadio.com. Clemson, Carolina at 7 on ESPN. Everything else, go there. Monumental Canadiens, Capitals at 7 o'clock. ESPN Plus and Hulu for Avalanche Devils at 7:30. Oilers, Golden Knights at 10. TNT, Mavericks, Nets at 7:30. Bucks, Suns tonight at 10. Fox Sports 2 for the CONCACAF Women's U17 Championship. The U.S. taking on Canada at 1 o'clock. And the USA Network for WWE NXT tonight at 8. Non-sports.
Not a whole lot. On Paramount Plus, a new docuseries, #Cyber Sleuths. This is the Idaho murders from a couple years ago, and it's just a documentary of how the TikTok how they solved that.
Yeah, it was an awful story, obviously, but crazy. Yeah,
that's on Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor will be on Jimmy Kimmel with his daughter Claire McGregor, because they're in a movie called Bleeding Love. Comes out in I think next weekend.
Is it about Leona Lewis?
No. It's like sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ.
But his daughter plays his real daughter.
Oh,
okay.
Keep bleeding love. It's actually a great song.
Maybe they'll play it in the movie.
They should.
But his daughter plays his real daughter, or his real daughter plays his daughter in this movie, and it's like some not coming of age, but a nice father-daughter movie.
Sure.
With Ewan McGregor, so it should be good.
Sure.
Asia Wilson will be on Stephen Colbert.
Huh. She's very good at what she does.
Yeah, she is.
She's outstanding.
Those are the highlights.
Oh, and Colbert is like a South Carolina guy too, right?
Oh,
Isn't
okay.
he? So, yeah.
Yeah, his initials are SC, so yeah.
No, I think he's from South Carolina. I don't think it's his initials. Although I don't know what his real name is. Is his real name Stephen Colbert? I mean, it's probably not Colbert. It might be Colbert.
Stephen. Yeah, that's his full name.
That's his actual given.
I mean, at least according to.
And he's from
the Wikipedia.
Well, apparently, he was born in D.C. But I could have sworn he came up. There was a South Carolina thing.
Northwestern, apparently. So.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. He's in.
Yeah.
Hang on, South Carolina. I could have sworn. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
He grew up in Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you. God. Felt like I was drowning there for a second. Oh, right, because he would always make fun of North Carolina barbecue, as he should. Whenever when I used to watch, because I'd watch the Colbert Report. That was a brilliant show. Anytime he had somebody on that was from North Carolina, he would bring out a plate of tasteless food. You think this is barbecue? North Carolina barbecue stinks. It's not barbecue. It's just vinegar. God bless you.
North Carolina's got something, doesn't it?
Hush puppies are delicious. Nobody's going to argue about that. But everything else about North Carolina barbecue stinks. South Carolina barbecue, outstanding. Outstanding.
Southern broil.
North Carolina barbecue, awful. Just some vinegar. That's it. Stinks. Get out of my face. South Carolina barbecue, 13.5. I thought I was going crazy there for a second with Stephen Colbert. Thanks.
Born in Bethesda and then moved to South Carolina.
I see. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. Was that farmers? And we know a thing or two about a thing or two?
Yeah.
It's actually me. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. The Tubular was also brought to you by Toyota. Toyota is making our Pick'em contest possible at County Sports Zone. CountySportsZone.com is your headquarters for local high school scores, schedules, and standings across all sports, and they are proudly sponsored by Toyota. Thanks today to Patrick Stevens, to Wes Brown from County Sports Zone, and to Ryan Spilborghs. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. So we think we're going to chat with Ryan Jensen tomorrow.
Yes, that is the belief.
All right. Drew.
We should catch up with Bo Smolka tomorrow.
Bo Smolka, Press Box Ravens beat writer. After today, they're introducing Zach Orr in a press conference and Stuff and Things.
Stuff and Things.
Big day. Thanks, everybody at Press Box, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel, Mother's North Grill, A.J. Michaels, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Superbook Sports, Glory Days Grill, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Maryland men, go Maryland women, go Towson or Johns Hopkins lacrosse. Duke sucks.